welcome back to the Story Shack with me, Kath, and Sloppy the Rabbit. Well, today we have a story from Ireland, and it's a story about how the Giant's Causeway came to be in Northern Ireland. It all began with the great Irish giant, Fionn MacCool, who was always so angry at the Scottish giants, his enemies, that he built a whole causeway, which is a great big path, all the way from Ulster in Northern Ireland across the Irish Sea to Scotland, just so he could battle with them. So one day he shouted a challenge to the Scottish giant Benandonna to cross the causeway and fight him. "Come on, if you think you're hard enough," he yelled at the top of his voice. Well, in no time at all, he had his wish as the Scottish giant roared his outrage and turned his huge, ugly head towards Ireland. But as soon as Fionn saw the Scot getting closer and closer on the causeway, he realised, to his horror, that Benandonna was much, much bigger than he had imagined. He ran home to the Fort of Allen in County Kildare and told his wife, Una, he'd picked a fight. "Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time," he wailed, "but I've changed my mind. He's massive." "You foolish great lump," hissed his wife. "I suppose I'll have to sort this out as usual." Fionn heard the stamping feet of Benandonna, who came knocking on Fionn's door, but he wouldn't answer. He just sat there, quivering and quaking and biting his giant knuckles. So his wife shoved him in the cradle with a couple of sheets over him. And then she opened the door, saying, "Fionn's away hunting deer in County Kerry. Would you like to come in anyway and wait? I'll show you into the Great Hall to sit down after your journey." "Sure, would you like to put your spear down next to Fionn's there?" she said, showing him a huge fir tree with a pointed stone at the top. "Over there's Fionn's shield," she said, pointed to a block of building oak as big as 4 chariot wheels. "Fionn's late for his meal. Will you eat if I cook his favourite?" Una baked bread with iron inside it, so when Benandonna bit into it, he broke 3 of his front teeth. The meat was a strip of hard fat nailed to a block of red timber, so Benandonna bit it and he cracked his 2 back teeth. "Roar!" he growled, trying hard not to show how much pain he was in. He decided it was best to keep that to himself for now. "Would you like to say hello to the baby?" asked Una. She pointed him to a very, very large cradle in which Fionn was hiding, dressed in baby clothes. Benandonna just stared in disbelief. "Oh, my giddy aunt," he thought. "That's his baby. How big must Fionn MacCool actually be?" But he decided it was best to keep that to himself for now. Una then showed Benandonna into the garden, which was scattered with boulders as tall as the giant himself. "Sure, Fionn and his friends play catch with these rocks. Fionn practices by throwing one over the fort and then running to catch it before it falls. He's the champion at this, bless his little cotton socks," she chuckled proudly. Benandonna tried to have a go at this, but the boulder was so massive he could barely lift it above his head before dropping it. "Oh, my giddy aunt," he grunted. By this time, he was feeling so fearful of Fionn MacCool that he needed to think of a way of getting home before he returned from his hunting trip in Kerry. "Oh, well," he said after a while, "I think I'd better be getting back to Scotland before the tide comes in. It's a wee bit late for a proper fight anyway. I'll come back another time." At that moment, Fionn leapt from the huge cradle and he chased Benandonna all the way out of Ireland. Digging a huge piece of earth out of the ground, Fionn flung it at the Scot, and the hole he made filled up with water, which became the biggest loch in Ireland. The earth he threw missed Benandonna, but landed right in the middle of the Irish Sea to form the Isle of Man. Well, there was a huge battle after that. Both giants tore up chunks of Fionn's causeway as they smashed and hurled stones at each other. And by the end of the day, Fionn MacCool and Benandonna stood exhausted with the Irish Sea in between them. All that was left were the stony paths on each side by the two shores, which is the Giant's Causeway that you can still see today. And from that day forward, the only shouts to be heard from the Irish side were those of Una telling Fionn MacCool off, and Ben and Donna decided not to tell anyone that he failed to win a fight with a baby giant. He decided it was best to keep that to himself for now. See you next time.